not sure if you guys can see my breath in here, but it is like, I think 30 degrees outside. And I film these in my shed, you know, movie magic to make this actually look like it's a well put together thing. And it's freezing out here, so let's get on with this video. So I've been a car photographer for 5 years now, and there are so many things that I wish I would have known when I started out. And so today I am going to give you my top 5 tips that I wish I would have known when I started car photography. So if you're a beginner car photographer, or even if you're a well-seasoned one, these tips for sure will elevate your game to the next level. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first tip is location is everything. If you ask me my philosophy on car photography, I've always said that it is landscape photography with a car in it. Landscape or architectural photography. Because for me, a car photo, 90% of it is the backdrop that you put the car, and then 10% of it is the car choice. So I would say make sure you take a ton of time planning your shoot locations, spending a ton of time finding locations just to have for whenever clients do hire you. Your locations are key when it comes to taking good photos. Because if you think about it, if you just go take a photo of an Aventador in front of a Walmart, that's going to be an okay photo. Like, people will be like,
oh, that's cool, it's an Aventador.
But if you took a photo of just like a more normal car, let's say like a WRX STI, and did it in front of like the Dolomites in Italy, people are going to think that that's an insane photo. I'm lucky enough that I get to live pretty close to the state of Utah that has some insane landscapes. I'll throw up a couple photos right here of just some of the craziest landscapes that I get to shoot in pretty regularly, but that is all by design. I go out of my way to make sure the photos that I take are in some insane locations, and that the locations just work really well with the car that I'm photographing, because that choice of where I'm taking the photos makes or breaks the photo. So make sure you take your time, pick cool locations for your photos, and that will level up your photography, I promise you. And also, what I like to do on my free time, which sounds so boring, and I'm amazed that I have a girlfriend because this is what I do on my free time, I like to just drive around and find new locations. I go down side streets that I've never been down before to find buildings that you would have never expected. I just like to scroll on Google Maps when I'm in bed and just like zoom in, pinch it out, like find cool spots everywhere. So make sure you're really focusing on locations, and also make sure to pay attention to the time of day that you're shooting to in those locations, because one location might work great at sunset, one location might work great when it's midday, another one might work great at sunrise, but sometimes they might not work with different time of days. So just make sure your locations are curated to the shoot that you're making, and it will just level up your photos, I promise. And to piggyback on the locations, tip number 2 is make sure that location complements the car you are photographing. You do not want to put a cool car that you're photographing into a location that's going to completely clash with the color. Like if you brought a neon green Lamborghini and you put it in front of some weird like baby blue wall, or just some really god-awful like highlighter yellow accent thing, or even shot it at a time of day where you just can't see that color very well, then that is just not going to be a good compliment for that car, and your client might actually be really disappointed that their car just doesn't look good with the like the location that you picked for it. So I would say definitely make sure you're taking in the car's shape, color, just accents, like everything, and make sure you just like gear it towards the photos you're taking. The person that I really see that does this great, I'll give you 2 photographers. First is Kyle Fletcher. It almost seems obsessive with the locations on complementing the cars, down to he will make sure the location has accent colors that match the accent colors of his car. He did this photo set with this 812 GTS that I think was black with yellow accents, and he found a location that was all concrete gray, which like Max the black good, but it had yellow pylons, yellow poles, like just little accents in the location that tie in the yellow accents of the car. So he definitely knows how to pick his locations really well. And the next one I would like to highlight is, his name is Zoomy, and he takes amazing photos, but he mostly focuses on like architecture for his photography. Like I said, you can do landscapes or architecture, and he just is really good at picking architecture that complements the cars that he's shooting. Like he shot this Revuelto, this matte black Revuelto with this black building, and it just looks so cool. And so again, but these are people that are obsessing over the location that they're shooting in. And again, the location that they're shooting is what makes that a cool photo. Like you can see a million photos of an A12 GTS, but them taking the time to put them in a really cool spot is what makes them special. So make sure you focus on your locations and make sure those locations complement the car. All right, next tip, and this is a big one. I was guilty of this for so long when I started car photography, and I see a lot of beginner photographers doing the same mistake, but that is take a step back.
Back up!
Make sure you give that car some breathing room on the frame. Like, you don't need to be right up on the car. There's going to be times when, yes, you want to get detail shots, or maybe if you're shooting with like a wide angle, you want the car to look like disproportionate but cool. Take a step back, give that car some breathing room, and just like capture that background that you've worked so hard finding, and make sure it complements the car and show it off. I know it's hard when it's like cars that are in like a car show, and if you're at the stage where you're mostly starting out and taking photos of cars in a car show, that can be really difficult. But using your environment for the photo can actually really help in taking a step back. But even if you're at like a cool landscape somewhere, what's the point of being in a cool landscape if you don't show off the landscape in the photo? Take a step back. Don't fill your frame with it, because the photos just feel claustrophobic. That's the best way to describe it. Like, you feel claustrophobic, you feel like tight in there. Give your car some breathing room. If you look on my page, most of my photos, the car can almost fit in like the center box of, like, if you had the grid that pops up, it almost fits in the center box almost every time. And because I just wanted to feel like you're just witnessing this whole environment around the car. And again, it's an environment that I specifically curated to take those photos. Quick recap real fast. Pick your locations well. Make sure that the locations complement your photos, and take a step back and show off that location, and just show like this really cool spot that you spent so much time picking for the car, that you made sure complemented the car, and now you're going to show that off with the car. Now, I promise the next tip isn't location based. I know that's the big thing, but again, I said like car photography is just landscape photography with the car in it. So of course I'm going to focus on those elements. But the next big thing is some gear that I think every car photographer needs. The gear that I'm talking about is one of these. This is a circular polarizer, and it is an essential part of any car photographer's kit. This will take off the reflections off of your car's windows and also off your car's just paint, and just really show off the paint better, show off the car better, but just take off the bad like reflections that just ruin the aesthetics of some cars sometime. And especially if you're shooting in more harsh conditions like direct sunlight, then those reflections are rough. So using a circular polarizer is essential. All right, last but not least, tip number 5, it's don't center frame everything. I also had this big issue back in the day where it was just easy just to frame the car right in the middle, center frame it. That is what you do for every photo. Every time you take a detail photo, every time whatever, it's center framed. And I have had to like really push myself to try to stop doing that, because it just feels safe. Like, it's center framed, it's easy to show off that way. But I've been really trying to make sure I'm practicing my rules of thirds and making sure that like the photos are, I'm using that whole frame and using proper composition to show off the car and again the landscape. Because if you center frame everything, sometimes you can't show off the locations that you picked very well. So putting something like around in this like bottom third or up here, or even when you take a picture of the detail shot, putting the logo up in this corner or down here, like just use the rule of thirds. And if you don't know what the rule of thirds is, look it up. It's super simple. And if you guys want me to make just a photo basics video talking about like rule of thirds and exposure and stuff, let me know down below. I'll be glad to make that if you guys would like to see that. But yeah, practice your rule of thirds, practice your photography basics and just your fundamentals, and just make sure you utilize that in your photos, because I guarantee you people will love to see the cars that aren't just always center framed. Like, Instagram is such a center frame focused platform. And if you go on my Instagram, most of my front photos are center framed just because I like how it makes my grid look on Instagram. But when you start scrolling through, I start putting things to the left, start putting things differently, or I start cropping them differently, because that's just how, like, what looks good, and like people like the variety and the mixing it up and don't want everything just right in the middle. So I promise you, when if you play around with like your framing and your cropping, especially have fun cropping. Crop it in a different way. Twist the frame a little weird. Like I took these photos of a GT3 RS where I used the rule of thirds, put the photo down on the bottom right, but when I came to do this straight on back shot, I was like, this is just a normal back shot of the car with the sunset. Why don't I just like turn it 45 degrees? And so that's what I did. I grabbed the photo, turned it 45 degrees, and even though it's like not fundamentally, that's like not a good thing to do, I actually really enjoyed how it looked like that. And I posted it, and a lot of people loved that photo the most of that set because of that different kind of just orientation. Just twist it a little bit, turn the cropping like a little differently, like have fun with it, and just, you know, express yourself artistically. Don't put everything into just this box right in the middle of your rule of thirds that you don't. That's just don't put everything in there. Mix it up a little bit. Have fun. Art is supposed to be fun, and like do it. Have fun. Alright guys, so those are the 5 tips I wish I would have got when I started photography. I want to know if any of these helped you out, and I really want to see you guys implement these into your photos. If you start taking these tips and like you see a difference in your photos, send it to me on Instagram. I want to see your successes, and I want to hype you on because we can all win at this, and I want to see everybody's art that they create. Please go out there, start shooting, get creative, and if you implemented these tips, please let me know. I would love to hear from you, and I would love to see the photos you take. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend with me, listening to me rant about photography stuff. I appreciate you being here, and I hope I catch you in the next video. Peace.